worth talking about is Qassem Soleimani being assassinated, an extrajudicial execution. Donald Trump called the airstrike that killed Qassem Soleimani, and there you can see the Iranian officials weeping on TV. I believe one of them is actually the father of Qassem Soleimani. And propaganda or no propaganda, the Iranian people are not afraid to show their emotion. And the country has declared 3 days of mourning. And the Iranian people are a proud people. And whether they agree with their government, with the regime or not, nothing will unite them more than the threat from another country. And I was in Iran just over 2 years ago, and on the road through Shiraz, the city in the south of the country, the roads are lined with posters with pictures of martyrs from the Iran-Iraq war. And of course, this is a propaganda tool used by the regime, but every Iranian that looks at those remembers them as an Iranian first and foremost. And you do see the logos and the pictures of Khomeini underneath. And I said to a friend that I was driving with as we approached that city, what do you make of all these posters? And he said, I'm not in favour of the current government, but these people died for Iran. And that's what we have to remember. Nothing will be a rallying cry like an attack from the great Satan. And people that don't even back the Iranian government, usually, they will be now. They will be now. And analysis: death threatens to open grisly new chapter in the Middle East, as if we didn't have enough death and mayhem in the Middle East already. And US citizens in Iraq, tell us about your situation. Yeah, I think US citizens in Iraq will be unsafe now. And is anyone safe? There will be a backlash to this situation. The Iranian government will not sit back and do nothing. And for example, the Lockerbie bombing that was blamed on Abdul Basit al-Megrahi, a Libyan terrorist, was more likely a revenge reprisal attack for an Iranian passenger jet that was brought down by the United States without any apology, without any recompense, and not straight away, not immediately, but eventually there was a reprisal. I hope there isn't. If there is, it certainly won't be Donald Trump who pays the price for his own blunder. It will be innocent people, more innocent bloodshed. And it's strange. We're living in very, very strange times. We're living in Alice in Wonderland, where everything is the opposite. And people that you would expect to be denouncing this are celebrating it, and vice versa. People that you might think would be in favour of it are not. This general, Qassem Soleimani, who was in Iraq, has been crucial in the war in Syria, which Iran have been dragged into, as have Russia. And it amazes me the limited understanding that some people have of this. I'm not saying I understand this completely, or what I'm about to say is the gospel truth, but some people have such little understanding, and they are repeating misconceptions. They are parroting propaganda that they've heard. So a friend of mine weighed in on this on Facebook today, as everybody has, as am I, as is our right to freedom of speech. And they were making the point that, Donald Trump has done what he warned Barack Obama not to do, and has launched a war in order to win himself an election. And I'm of the opinion that perhaps it's more likely this will actually cost him the election. But we got a call anyway. Hello, caller. Who's this? Hey, Mac. Return of the Mac. I'm good. I'm glad I've got an Iranian on this topic.
Yeah, no, I'd like to obviously weigh in some point.
Weigh in. Where do I start? You go for it.
What is it? It's because of them I'm here. It's because of the government. I'm against, like anti-regime against them.
Okay.
My dad used to make films competing like Hollywood films, so you would have like people without scarves dancing, and so he was down for prosecution and or being locked up. So my dad we had to flee. We're anti-government.
So your family fled the regime that came to power in 1979?
Oh, yeah.
Just for people that don't know exactly what happened there, just give a little bit of background if you could.
Okay. First of all, Iran's, I think the history of attacking any country is like they haven't attacked over 150 years. Now, the wars that we had was defending ourselves against Saddam. Now, that was one of the other reasons why we flee as well. So, not only because of, the problem is, what they've done is clever. They've taken a top general down. But in terms of tumbling, they've tried everything from psycho warfare to, in terms of internet warfare. I don't know if you knew that they designed this bug. I can't remember what the name of the YouTube is, but they designed this bug so they can send it to the Iranian nuclear place, whatever, and it will come up. It'll basically overheat and kind of explode, or basically that's how far it goes. If I find you, I'll send you the link. So basically, they've been trying to. It's one of them things, isn't it? It's like a Saddam. They put Khomeini in 1979 in charge, exiled the king. Then the king was in a situation where Salman Rushdie, he was on like they wanted him. They wanted there was a bounty.
Okay, so the king is the Shah of the Pahlavi dynasty. Why was he there?
Yeah.
Why was he the king?
Why? Because of his father. His father's achievements. His father's achievements. Ideally in that region, his father's obviously. But
why was the Shah Reza II the absolute monarch and dictator of Iran?
He spoke 3 languages. He was more westernized than any.
I bet he was, because the West installed him in 1953.
Yeah, he spoke French, English, and Persian fluently, as well as
Bah. How wonderful.
Yeah.
But
Funny thing
why was he? What I'm saying is, why was he there? Dr. Mossadegh was the democratically elected prime minister, and in 1953 he was overthrown by America, and they installed a brutal dictator that you probably prefer to the current regime. But he was still a brutal dictator, and his Savak secret police was still militant and tortured people.
Yeah, I mean, in Iran, there's so many different types of undercover. I mean, I don't even I don't. If I was to go to Iran, I couldn't live there. I really couldn't. Like, I'm so westernized in my ways that I just don't think I can even visit a country. But in terms of like a war to break out, I mean, I've always, for the last decade, I've kind of sensed that it's going to happen. But one hand, I just realized is in Iran, we're multicultural. There's a lot of Zoroastrians. There's a lot of Jews. There's a lot. So, I mean, even Christians. There's quite a lot of Christians too. But I don't know. Are those people?
Well, do you think Iran is better off today now that Donald Trump has assassinated Soleimani?
Well, it's a good sign that they're getting a job done without harming necessary collateral.
Who's getting a job done?
Well, I mean, it must be Mossad or something, isn't it? Obviously, but
Well, it was America. We don't have to say anyone else was involved. Donald Trump made a strategic strike. I've got it on the screen now. Trump boasts Soleimani should have been taken out years ago as he blames Iranian terror general killed in US drone strike for millions of deaths.
He basically slipped a note. This is why he was on the wanted list. If you do research on Soleimani, you'll be astonished. This guy slipped a note because what happened is this head of CIA, I can't remember which one it was, basically went to his desk. He sees a note saying, and it was from Soleimani saying, "Listen, I can get to you this close, so watch yourself," kind of thing, yeah. And then since that note, he's become on the wanted list. This is how deep Soleimani was on like high priority on the list because of one of the moves that he's done was left a note on the intelligence services desk, and that's quite creepy from their point of view. Do you see what I mean?
Do you think there will be a reprisal?
There'll be a what?
A reprisal, a revenge.
Well, he was on the hit list. They got him, so let's just hope it makes a difference in terms of. I mean, it's what it comes down to realistically is Hormuz, the Straits of Hormuz. Yeah.
Okay.
So if they've got a top general down, that kind of helps to weaken the strength of militarizing that region. No.
Mm-hmm. So it's all about controlling a strategic port, as usual.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, again, there's no religion involved, but if they do invite the Sunni Shia thing, it's just divide and conquer. It comes back to divide and conquer it. But my opinion, it's a good thing. I think it should hopefully send a message to the rest of the Iranian government.
Okay, so what were your feelings about Donald Trump before this morning?
I've always thought he's a business-minded. I might not be a kind of presidential material, but he's a business. So he deals with things in a business situation, and I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't have an opinion about. I mean, it's all a show, and he's fun to watch. He's a character. Bush was a character. They all had their own characteristics. You know what I mean?
No doubt. But it seems like you're thankful for what he's done today.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean,
as an Iranian, do you not feel attacked by this extrajudicial murder of one of your countrymen?
No, I mean, I'm pro-Israeli, so me, I feel that it's not right if anyone to die, but if that was, if because their regime is extremist. I mean, they go as far as if they were to face Israel in the Olympics, they wouldn't play them. That's silly. I mean, come on, man.
No, I think that's honourable. I think that's standing just as cricketers wouldn't play South Africa when Africa was South Africa was an apartheid state.
I've seen Galloway as it on LBC. I can't remember what, ranting about saying that he wasn't happy about the flags with the David. And what's wrong with that? It's not. I think it was a Tottenham Hotspur games or something. But what it was, I don't see a problem with like at the end of the day, like Cyrus the Great.
Mm-hmm.
How was if he believed that they were what we as a Muslims we call it people from the book. If he believed that they were not on the right path, he would have aligned them to what he thinks was right. But he knew they had to be free from Babylon, and he even helped them rebuild the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, what does that indicate? That means he wants them to have a place, and that's a prophet of God in the Bible, not even just the Quran, but in the Bible. So this is my again, history doesn't repeat itself. It's the fool who's doomed to repeat it if he doesn't understand history.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you bring this up, Mac, and you've said your stance on this, and you seem to be happy about what happened today. What is Russia's relationship with Trump, as you understand it, and the relationship in the region? Because someone said to me today, and this is...
To be honest with you, it's always a bit weird. When the World Cup happened,
mm-hmm.
like Russia and then the Saudi king was in the same spot.
It was a great World Cup. It went off without any incident. Russia hosted a great World Cup.
No, they did, but it seems like this is the thing. This is what I tried to keep saying to you in the past. The masses need to be distracted while the real deal goes down without having to be reported. So people are looking at, following shows, TV shows, and that, and this and that. But it's all a distraction. It's all part of their distractions, whether it's baseball or football or any other, it's just to distract the masses. I mean, so they don't see. So the World Cup, I just see it as, yeah, okay, I'm interested. I'm a football fanatic, but again, I'm not interested to see what's going on behind the closed door because I don't have the power to do anything.
Mm.
But obviously, there's something going on. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And the funniest was it Qatar who won. Have you watched the Gary Neville thing about how Qatar won the next World Cup to actually, they're actually doing it.
No, I haven't seen that, but Qatar are hosting the next World Cup, aren't they? Yeah.
They're hosting it.
Yeah.
And Gary Neville actually goes in depth to see how did they win the bid and why did. But yeah, it's all money. But again, it's a distraction. While one of the craziest things for me is Sophia being a citizen in Saudi. Do you know about Sophia?
Is this the robot?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, we can talk about artificial intelligence. We'll go back to Saudi in a moment, but I just want to ask...
My stance is, hopefully, if they can weaken the government, and obviously the government realizes, but the government doesn't seem like they're playing game. They're trying to push, I think, they're trying to push it to the limit. That's what it seems in my eyes. But my stance is I'm hoping that it doesn't escalate. There's no escalation to it. I just hope they're doing targeted events which are taking place, which weaken, and obviously restructure. Because the people are suffering in Iran. The government aren't really doing nothing. What are they doing? And what it is, they need to start looking after their people rather than having to spend budget on security. I mean, I guess, I don't know. For me, I'm more westernized. I don't really, like, I have no qualms in this matter, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But what's your stance? What do you think? Do you think it's a good thing that this has happened?
Oh, well, I think it's a terrible thing that's happened. I think Donald Trump has been the hypocrite and done what he accused Barack Obama of doing. He said that Barack Obama would launch a war against Iran in order to win an election. Coincidentally, Donald Trump is launching a war or provoking a war with Iran prior to an election.
A president that's in a war doesn't get the elections kicked back. So for Trump to stay in power, if he continues war, then obviously I think that he stays in office.
Well, my actual gut feeling is that this could cost him the election. I think this is a mistake. He's gone back on what he promised when he was standing for election. What probably got him elected was the notion of being non-interventionist, of not chasing these stupid wars in the Middle East, and he was against the Iraq war. He said it was a waste of time or a waste of resources.
It's impressive though that they got the man. I mean, they've been trying to get him for years.
Well, let's see how impressive the retaliation is. I mean, I wouldn't fly a plane over Scotland anytime soon, if you know what I mean.
I mean, they were looking for Osama for so long, and they obviously
they should have remembered his original name, Tim Osman.
That's funny.
They should have phoned him. They probably still had his number.
But as you can imagine, Iranians, they have a humor, and they're not going to sit back. Now, obviously, and take. I don't feel like that, because if they're going to name the street of the embassy Bobby Sands,
that's right.
Showing you.
That's right.
What does that show you?
That's right.
Their own game.
The Lockerbie bombing was not done by Libya. That's for sure. It was scapegoat.
You've been on Bobby Sands.
I have. That's right.
So that's what I see. But I don't know. What do you think? The war's gonna obviously flare up.
Yes. And I think Trump has caved into pressure. I mean, I was talking about the ignorance of some people and the propaganda and the parroting of propaganda. When I said Trump has caved into pressure, someone said, "Oh, do you think his Russian handlers have told him to do this?"
Yeah, but I think Russia are more on Iran.
Exactly. If Trump, they tried to say Trump is in bed with Russia and is influenced by Russia. If Russia had any influence over Donald Trump, they would have told him not to do this.
Okay, this is the thing is, you got to see the bigger picture. Russia trying to right now. America are like in charge of UN. Realistically, UN who does it go down to? Either Israel or Americans. Now, the intermediate policing.
So
Russia want to be the intermediate policing. Does that make sense?
Okay.
They want to be the world intermediate power, or the ones that intervene to come to the rescue, shall we say?
Yeah.
Not the Americans. That's what they're trying to achieve. I swear they came out of NATO and created their own little.
Well,
thing, isn't it?
Russia were the last to arrive in Syria.
No, but are they part of NATO?
No, Russia are not part of NATO.
Exactly.
They're the non-aligned movement.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say. It's a move that Russia is trying to. They're in bed with everyone, is what I'm trying to say. Russia.
Everyone other than Russia. Well, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Syria on one team versus Britain, America, and Israel, and all their lackeys, Saudi Arabia included.
Russia knows it's just about power, and Russia is just playing the role that they need to. Like for me, one minute he's with the Saudi king, next minute he's making deals with Iran. So.
Well, so he's a diplomat. He's diplomatic.
Well, he's trying to. Well, the diplomacy he's trying to show is trying to be like he's the enemy. Like he's the police. He's the one that's policing the situation. So therefore, he becomes the higher. Their government becomes the higher authority rather than the UN or any NATO or any. You see what I mean?
Well, look, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Essentially, isn't it one world order, right?
Yeah, and you seem to be in favour of it.
No, but it's leading that way, and Russia, obviously, this is the best opportunity for Russia as well.
Well, look, you've got Britain, America, and Israel on one side. They've threatened Iran. They've attempted to topple Bashar al-Assad, and they've invaded Libya and done away with Colonel Gaddafi. And you've got the other people on the other side who are the victims of these attacks and provocations. So who are you with? Are you with Britain, America, Saudi Arabia and Israel? It sounds like it.
I'm full British because my dad's buried here now. I mean, as I said, I can't even live in that kind of state, the environment. I mean, you're walking down the street, a boy and a girl, if a police think something approaches, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Did they not say to you that it's a problem that you can't be too intimate or hold hands even if they
I walked around Iran with several women. It wasn't a problem.
Really?
Yeah. I have it on video.
Maybe it's not as. But obviously that they assess the situation. If there are a couple of girls, but if it looks like a romantic, you're in a picnic situation, and you're not married, and you're just.
There's nothing more romantic than a picnic. That's for sure.
Well, they do that a lot in Iran because they've got little mountains in Tehran.
But look, that's not as bad as bombing Yemen. That's not as bad as bombing Libya, bombing Iraq, bombing Afghanistan. I know the regime in Iran is a bit strict. I know it's a bit much, but that is not a reason to wish for the United States of America, the world's only superpower, to bomb you back to the Stone Age. Just be careful what you wish for.
I'm not wishing for them to be bombed.
No, do you know what? I know you're not personally, but I'm talking to the people that think America is going to bring change in Iran or is going to bring regime change. It'll be out of the frying pan into the fire.
Okay, so my point was, when I said to you, Iran hasn't attacked the country over 150 years, meaning that they're not looking to be superpowers.
That's right.
Trying to coexist. They're just trying to exist as a state. I get that.
Yeah, and they've been threatened on every side by every American ally.
What, sanctioned, and whoever deals with them gets sanctioned. Which is, I see the heart. I get it.
Okay, so Iran haven't attacked anyone for 150 years, and that's a good thing. You're a fan of Israel, and Israel's 70 years old. How many countries has Israel attacked?
Well, it's not attacked, it's been defending.
Israel has launched aggressive wars, preemptive strikes, whatever you want to call it, against all its neighbours, and occupies land of the whole of Palestine and two of its neighbours also.
Yeah, but it's...
in contravention of international law. Everything good you say about Iran, I could say something bad about Israel.
The thing is...
Since you brought it up, Mac.
No. I said this to you, though. I'm going to sound cool for saying it again.
That's right.
But it's like getting rid of rats. You're going to try and...
who are the rats in all this?
Well, if you're trying to...
The Palestinians.
At the end of the day, the word of God, it's the word of God. Whether he came through the Bible and the Quran, but it's the fact, like, Israel is a land that needs to be given to... Because I see it as as I said to you, it goes back to that masjid where from Jerusalem he faced Mecca. That was in the middle of his prayer. In Masjid al-Qiblatain, Masjid al-Qiblatain. So that for me is action that has logic behind it.
And 100 years ago, when Theodor Herzl was dreaming up the Jewish homeland, the Jewish state that would be non-religious, would be atheistic, and these were Jewish people who regarded themselves as Jewish by ethnic identity only, rather than religion, you would still be with it and say, yes, this is King David's the throne. This is the holy Jerusalem.
It's important, the bloodline, isn't it? I mean, I think in the Jewish, I've noticed, I think I've heard, they consider mother, but in Persian and Arabic, I think it's fathers.
Yes, traditionally, yes.
Traditionally, yes, that's what they say. But obviously, science has proven it's obviously from the sperm of the father.
Good old science.
Yeah. So, in terms of okay, I've been saying for a decade now. This is what I tried to ask you.
Yeah.
I've been to Damascus 2006. Now you've gone 13 years later.
Yeah.
From every maybe I can't explain it. Maybe 3 blocks, 4 blocks down here and there was hubs of mashed up building. What's it like when you actually arrived there? Was it like, would you go to areas where it was secluded, isolated, and all buildings crashed down? What does it look like? I just want to understand. Is that the kind of thing that they're going to do to Iran? I mean, you've seen the carnage, the aftermath.
Yes. I've seen the aftermath. I've seen the destruction. I've also seen the parts that have survived well and been relatively untouched, and I've seen the bits that are recovering. And Syria is recovering. It's regenerating. It has not been bombed back to the Stone Age, luckily.
The thing is, in Syria, yes, Muslims and Christians, they used to use the same church. This has been tradition, and even in Jerusalem, it used to be like that at some point. I mean, that is, the funny thing is, Muslims, Friday is important, Jews are Saturday, and Christians Sunday. It's really kind of strange.
Yeah, well, we should all just get together and have a 3-day weekend, I think.
Honestly,
that's the dream.
Funny. But I just believe there was a few clips that I've seen from one of the old senators. I can't remember his name. But he was saying that there was a list, and the list of countries, or 7 countries.
Yes.
And Iran was one of them.
This is General Wesley Clark, who leaked the countries, 7 countries in 5 years. They're behind schedule, but yes, they're all on the list. And Lebanon is on there too, also Somalia. It's all countries in that strategic region.
Yeah, and Gaddafi, Libya as well.
Libya, Gaddafi's gone, check. Syria, Assad is on the list.
So that's just the part they're willing to show you. There's more super classified that I'm sure we don't know about.
So when you hear this, do you not think, well, there's the plan, there's the blueprint? I mean, that's the new world. That's new world order.
Something I'm aware of that you're not.
Here we go.
For the last 5, maybe 7, 8 years, Mossad has been going and planting literally magnetic explosive devices on scientists working on in the power plants in Iran. Actual scientists, and you can research this.
You heard it here first. Okay, so your friends have been targeting scientists in Iran. Do you condone that?
Well, it depends. I mean,
because it's in the Bible.
The scientists they're worried that they're going to be using it for warfare purposes. But I mean, this is the thing. Iran has survived these many years being sanctioned, so they're using it.
So Iran's being sanctioned. Iran is having scientists murdered by Israel that's launched wars on all its neighbours. Iran hasn't...
Protecting people like me, because now if I have any in my passport, if it says I was, even though like, alright, did you know I was born in Iran?
And now we know.
You know, but I'm not actually off the boat as you would think, because people that do try and say that say, okay, what off the boat would know Kumbaya, my lord? Because in assembly, I remember I've been time.
Here we go. We're going back down memory lane now.
No, I'm just. This is how you test off the boats. So if they don't know Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars or these are like bedtime nursery rhymes, then you know blah blah black sheep.
Yeah.
All of these things.
You can't say that anymore. But go on.
So if obviously, but my point is, in them years growing up, obviously I can. When I grew up, I was up in the 82 region, isn't it? So it was during the wartime. So we flee. I came here from the age of 4 months.
Okay, yeah.
So that's how it played out. So for me, I've not really experienced Iran in that way, and I don't want to. Ever want to go back? To be honest, I don't have a reason.
Okay, you haven't experienced it. You don't especially want to go back. Well, maybe go back and see. Maybe go and see if you can hold hands with a woman in the street.
I was 14 and I did not like it. I actually went. I forgot that I was 14 and I went once, but I did not like it. Like, maybe it was a bad experience. I was young, but you probably had a better time. This is the thing. It's actually good. It's a very good place to visit as a tourist.
No doubt.
It's very, very historical. Like, did you go Persepolis?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was one. Yeah, and Naqshi Rostam as well.
It was amazing. Where Marco Polo went. The Freedom. It's called by the airport. I do remember seeing as a child. What's it called? The Freedom Tower.
It's a beautiful country. I hope it is not dragged into World War III, and I hope
it can't be. It won't be, because I have a feeling if they continue the way that Mossad has, they can weaken the government, which is great. Okay, well, I'm gonna leave that there, Mac, hanging in the air. Do you not want? You wanting what do you think would happen if the regime continued and survived?
I think it's up to the people.
Explain to me how good. If he hadn't died, what the future that they were leading to. Do you not think that was more closer to actual warfare than it is now? Now there's a provocation. I get it, but there's always, behind the scenes. They were. Fighting in Yemen. They're fighting in Syria. These fights have been going on outside of the war. Well, you could say off the turf of Iran. If that makes sense. So Iran have been fighting America.
Well, I think Iran has more right to be in Syria, next door but one, than America does.
Yeah.
They're only one of their few allies in the region that they have a defense pact with. If that country is overrun with fighters, then...
Tell me what is it you know that I don't? Because maybe...
About what?
Why is it... Okay, are you're obviously not pro-Israel, should we say? But what is it that's deterring you or making you think that it's not a good idea? Or
I think it's unfair that in a town such as Haifa, on the coast, which is in historic Palestine, there are people born there who cannot go back there. And there are people in New York or London or Russia or far corners of the world who've never been there, whose parents have never been there, whose grandparents have never been there, who may not believe in God at all, may be completely atheistic, may not follow any particular religion, but because of their deemed ethnicity, they can go and live there tomorrow, but the people born in Haifa cannot. That's just racist.
Well, the thing is, it's a promised land. To them.
Okay, so God's an estate agent. Okay.
No, it's
even to people that don't believe in him.
No, but God's word, you're trying to say God's word's not going to come to fruition.
I think people interpret God's word in the way that suits them, and in 100 years ago, the Zionist movement, which didn't even believe in God, interpreted it to suit them.
History's showing us Cyrus the Great. He didn't. If he thought they were on the wrong path, he would have made a stop to it then.
I know. It's hard to. I mean, you take it as gospel, so to speak. I'm probably not going to convince you, but as an outsider, can you see how ridiculous it looks to me?
A bit. I can understand.
Yeah, and it looks ridiculous to Jimmy Carter, the ex-American president who wrote a great book on the subject. It looked ridiculous to Albert Einstein, the greatest mind ever, who when offered the honorary presidency of Israel said, I cannot condone a country whose existence is at the expense of the local inhabitants. And it didn't make sense to Stephen Hawking either, who refused to speak at a conference in Israel.
Well, the thing is...
But it makes sense to you because it's in the Bible and King Solomon and Cyrus and all that. I get that. But some of us take that with a pinch of salt, Mac.
Okay, but everything in this world is based on contracts. Like that Balfour Declaration is what's holding this situation.
Oh yes, the Balfour Declaration from Lord Balfour to Baron Rothschild.
Exactly. So. Based on that contract, they're just playing out their role, what the UK is anyway.
Okay, but what right did the UK have to grant somebody else's country, other than they won it in a war, from someone else who didn't have the right to be there?
Well, it's not... I mean...
It should be the people that live there that decide who signs a contract to their country, not Britain, thousands of miles away, speaking a different language, in a different culture, in a different world. They had no right to say who can live in Palestine.
Okay, but where would... Okay, say, for example, an evil character like Hitler appears. What would they do if he was after the Jewish religion or anti-Semite?
What would happen? Well...
Where would they go? How would they have safety?
Well, Hitler, at first, just wanted all the Jews to leave Europe. And he didn't care where they went.
Well, Hitler was trying to achieve what EU is today.
Hence, Hitler and the Zionist movement signed the Havara Agreement, for which a coin was minted.
What coin?
The Havara, there was a coin minted to commemorate the Havara Agreement between the Zionist movement and the Nazi movement. This is why Ken Livingstone is no longer a member of the Labour Party, because he dared to mention it, that in the early stages, the Zionists the Nazis were quite happy to cooperate with Zionists to get the Jews out of Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard about that as well, yeah, I know. But there's a conspiracy in it, and the guy got really angry, and yeah, he had to. I know, but
okay.
Okay, if he was or not, it was his way of getting rid of them, I suppose. Or it's better than Auschwitz, no?
Yes, it is.
So if there is any reality to that.
So you like Hitler? So in other words, in his early days, Hitler was a good guy.
No, I'm saying he wasn't, because he did what he did in Auschwitz, made him really like.
But do you not see? Do you not see that the Zionists and the Nazis were on the same page? They wanted a Europe free of Jews, and the Zionists wanted all the Jews to. We've been robbed of our Jewish heritage in Europe. It's sad. It's sad that.
We both know the bigger picture. It's not them. It's the line, the bloodline of the rich family, or the 6th, 7th family, or whatever they call it, or 12th family, that were standing back, paying both ends of the war, and watching it, and profiting from it.
Okay.
Realistically, that's what it was, no?
I'm sure there is some truth in that. We can only deal with what's apparent and what. And the more I look into this, the argument is no longer about what happened. It's about whether you agree that what happened was morally justified. I don't think it is justified to turf people out of their land to make room for someone else.
Israel,
that's just me.
If it was a threat to Israel and Israel's future, what's wrong with preventing that or weakening a government that's trying to achieve that?
If who was, sorry?
Well, I'm saying if they're trying to, I mean, he was anti-Semite, Solomon, and obviously for the future of Israel, it wasn't good for him to.
Was he an anti-Semite? It's funny people call the Islamic Republic of Iran the anti-Semitic. When it's the country in the Middle East outside of Israel that has the largest Jewish population, where Jewish people have representation in the parliament, in the Majlis, where Jews can practice their religion freely, can even drink alcohol as they are not forbidden to in their religion.
It's the Zionists that they've been itching for. It's not the Jews.
Well, that's because there's a difference between the two, yeah.
Orthodox Jews are different, I get it. No, but this is the thing. It's a struggle for power, but like I said, Shah was taken off his throne. He was cool. I mean, in Farsi we say Shah, which means King of Kings. Like that's the title he had.
Okay.
And for other countries, I mean, even if you look at all the jewelry in Iran's equity is quite. I mean, it's quite rich in history, historical.
I wonder why anyone would want to invade it.
Well, that's the thing. You might want a statue in his property. In their strong power.
In one of his many hotels. But look, Mac, I'm going to wrap things up. We're almost at the hour mark, but I appreciate an Iranian insight to this.
No worries. I'm going to obviously continue listening, but I want to hear more on your thoughts on what you think and what the outcome will be. All
right, I'll try and answer those questions for you guys. So it's difficult. It's food for thought. Mac, thank you very much.
I'll send you a couple of links.
Yeah, superb. Get in the chat and stir things up if you would. Nice one. Brilliant. There's Mac, and what I love about this show is that we can disagree, but we can still be friends. And it's made me realise over the years, speaking to people with different opinions, sometimes those are the people that I enjoy speaking to the most, the ones you get more out of somebody who you disagree with. And now, my good friend Qassem has just messaged me on Facebook. I'm not going to look at that now, but because it might be a private message. But if he's listening, to get involved, if you're still awake, the number to call is 07880 526 445. Would love to hear from you. The lines are open if anyone else wants to get involved now, but I will wrap things up shortly. Mac wanted to ask me what I thought would happen it's always difficult to distinguish between what you think will happen and what you hope will happen. And I remember when a Russian pilot was shot down on the border between Syria and Turkey by Turkey, by Erdogan. Oh, here we go. We do have a call. Hello, caller. Who's this?
Jules?
Hi, who am I talking to?
It's me, Cal.
Callum, thank you so much, man. How are you?
Is this Jules?
Yeah, you're through to me, mate. Welcome.
Yes, mate. No, I'm kind of listening to your show, so I thought I'd call up and have a little chat.
Superb. Look, the airwaves are yours now.
I saw I got the wrong number at first, man. I was like, oh crap, I got the wrong number. But no, it's
What happened? Did you order a pizza or something? Who'd you get through to?
Yeah, that's it. I was just like, oh shit, if I called the wrong number.
Good man.
Like,
Your Facebook message has come up. It's come up on the screen. I hope you didn't say anything personal.
Sorry, it's like, debate me, geez.
Okay, cool. I just hit it there. Well, look, you're through to me now. And for people listening in, I was back and forth with Callum on Facebook today. This topic came up, and go for it. Tell me what you want to say.
Yeah, it's a big. I think we've just hit 2020, and apart from the bushfires in Australia that's gone crazy right at this moment in time, I think this is probably one of the biggest topics at the moment in terms of world politics and world news and stuff like that. The whole death of this general. I don't know. It's an interesting mark.
Are you surprised at how big it's been, Callum? I know you keep an eye on what goes on in Iran because you have an interest, but everyone is talking about this now.
Yeah, man. Just ever since Baghdadi, like I keep my eyes, as you probably see my Facebook posts, I keep my eyes locked in as much as possible when it comes to especially with Iran, because I think growing up as a Baha'i and being around my Baha'i family and like all my close connections with all the Baha'i youth in London.
Callum, I'm just going to explain for people that might not know. Callum, you are a member of the Baha'i faith, which is a minority religion that originated in Iran, and the followers of that religion are persecuted in Iran. Is that a quick summary that's fair?
Yeah, they're persecuted in many places.
Although but am I right? You're not Iranian background yourself, but your family are this religion.
Iranian background.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fourth generation Baha'i.
Fourth generation Baha'i, which is a religion that began in Iran, and the people there suffer for their religion. Okay, just to put that in perspective, in case perhaps people didn't know, and if they want to look it up, they can. Okay, so that you've got your eye on Iran, and I know that makes you very critical of the regime, and I can understand why you would be. My caution is to you and just people like you is make sure you don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. A regime change in Iran brought about by American imperialism might bring something worse than you have now.
I hope not. Don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest fan of secularism. I'm just going to drink some water a minute. I'm not the biggest fan of secularism because I think that brings its demons along with it. I believe that, along with secularism, there's rampant materialism, consumerism, and all this sort of stuff.
I was in Syria 2 weeks ago, which is a secular country officially by the government. But you know what? The people there are spiritual, and spirituality is alive and well in the hearts of the Christians and the Muslims. I don't know how much spirituality there is in Saudi Arabia. I know they're very religious, apparently, but I don't know how much spirituality there is. But the spirituality alive in the street In Syria, you can taste it from the way people greet each other, whether they're Christian or Muslim. Even the main mosque there, for 40 years, it was shared between the Muslims and the Christians until the Muslims bought it off the Christians. It wasn't they pushed them out or conquered them. They bought it off them after 4 decades of sharing it. And that shared coexistence is still alive in Syria. It might not be for long if things go the way other people want.
Inshallah, hopefully, the main thing is, I was speaking to actually a Chinese, I'm in Kamada at the moment, teaching English, but also helping, I'm like a well-being manager for the Chinese students. And I was chatting to one of the Chinese students today, and I was basically telling her that there's a massive difference, I believe, between the people, what normal people do, and what governments do,
Yeah,
and I think governments in the world, not all of them, but a majority of them are very corrupt, and very totalitarian and very authoritarian and so on. And there's a massive difference, I think, sometimes between these two entities, and sometimes it's normally the normal people that would have to suffer, from these type of governments. And I had to be very careful what I said to her, because you cannot talk about politics at all with Chinese students.
No problem. I get it. But you've got quite an insight into world affairs, because you've lived in other countries. You've obviously got an eye on what goes on in the Middle East. It's interesting. 100%,
and it was interesting what I was reading. You said about Haifa, and I think there's a lot of places. I think there are a lot of tension. But when I went to Haifa on Baha'i pilgrimage, the Baha'i shrines are in Haifa. You can see some cohesion. I think there is a little bit of back and forth tension, a little bit, to understand what's people's identity in that area, because there is there is multiculturalism, and the Jews and the Muslims do parts get along with each other, but there is
but 70 years ago, Qassem, Haifa was 80% Arab Palestinian. It's now 80% Israeli Jewish. How did that happen?
The Jews, they call them,
the Zionist movement
the Zionist
drove Palestinians out of their towns and villages. For example, Haifa.
I'm not a fan of the occupation in one sense of that, and so on.
And those Palestinians are living in the refugee camps of the West Bank, in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, and up in Jenin in the north of the West Bank. They can see Haifa. Haifa is visible from Jenin. They can see where they used to live, and they're not allowed to go back there. And Haifa is a beautiful city from what I've heard. Why wouldn't anyone who was born there, or whose parents or grandparents were born there, would want to live there? And of course, there's Jewish people living there now, and they're born there. They're from Haifa, but so are the Palestinians that were from Haifa. One day there will need to be a shared existence for everybody, for everyone.
100% agree.
Which of course will include the Baha'is who live there as part of their headquarters, and I'm sure they're welcome there too.
Yeah, the one thing that I see that I think is caused the most tension. This is why, as Baha'is, we believe in this concept of progressive revelation. But the concept is that religion needs to fit within the age and the time of the day in which we live in, right? So when I observe the conflict between the Jewish people and the Palestinians, one of the social teachings of both what they believe in is this concept of eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? So when I observe what's going on, and I say, okay, bombs are being flown into Israel, and then Israel attacks 100 times. Both of these groups believe in this concept of eye and eye for a tooth for a tooth. So both of them think that it's morally just that they should both look